Even in preseason, the 49ers annoy me. How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another video. So we can finally say football is officially back. Preseason is here, and our first game is against the San Francisco 49ers. And I still have PTSD over the last game. Alan Lazard was open. Moving on past that, we did have a lot of the starters not play in the first game this preseason, including Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon, and pretty much most of the first team on defense. Quay Walker did get the start, but for the rest of the first team on defense, they sat out. So to kind of sum it up in my reaction to the game, if you watched it, it showed a different tale than if you just looked at the stat sheet. So if you're just looking at the stat sheet, you would look at Jordan Love. See, he went 13 for 24, 176 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 picks. And when you see the 3 picks, it looks god awful if you didn't watch the game. But during the game, the first 2 picks that he threw weren't entirely his fault. The receivers just didn't catch the ball, especially on the second one where Romeo Doubs had the catch but was ripped away from the ball, so that ended up into a pick. The third one I would say is on him, even though Matt LaFleur said a couple receivers did not run the correct route. Looking back at the video, I would not have thrown that ball. Like, the cornerback undercut the route and it shouldn't have been thrown, and it was actually thrown behind him as well. So I pretty much put that completely on Jordan Love. And as we're on the topic of Jordan Love had an up and down game. He's shown some progress from where he was the past couple of years. He looked more decisive, and it looked like he had a lot more zip on the ball. I've been hearing about it during training camp and during the off season that he's had some zip on the ball, and it kind of showed. But the slight bad with it is that he still showed a bit of inaccuracies. He missed a lot of easy throws into the flat, whether it was to Tyler Goodson, and also had a couple of passes sail on him when he was thrown over to the middle. So he had a bit of inaccuracies, and I wasn't really impressed with his ball placement. I felt like he needs to get better in that department, especially if he's going to have any type of success. But it's still the first week or first game of the preseason, and there are improvements. Like, I felt a little more comfortable with him. I still don't see him being the future as of right now, but he's developing. So as long as he's making progress, that is good to see. And he's not the same Jordan Love that I've been looking at the past 2 years. There is some type of hope. Also, to note, Jordan Love did play the entire first half, so his entire stat line, along with the starters that actually started this game, are for the first entire half. So they got a good amount of reps, which ended up being about a total of 6 or 7 drives. So they had a bit of time to showcase something for us. Moving along to the running back group. The running back group as a whole had a good day. 34 rush attempts for 141 yards, no touchdowns, but they had a 4.1 average. In the first half, Tyler Goodson had the main start and was kind of the workhorse behind Jordan Love throughout the entire half. He ended up with 12 carries, 37 yards with a paltry 3.1 yard average. He was kind of blown up behind the line a couple times. It did not look kind of well because there were a few inside zone plays on 3rd and 2 and 3rd and 1 where he was just getting stuffed. So his 3.1 yard average isn't entirely on him, mainly because the offensive line had its slight struggles in the run game, especially when it was coming up the middle. There were some slight misassignments. Linebacker kind of ran free up the middle, was able to make the stop. So we could see some improvement. Then moving on to the receiving group, Romeo Doubs was pretty much the highlight of the entire preseason game, or at least the first half. He was definitely, it felt like force-fed. It was Jordan Love's favorite target. He had 7 targets in the game, but only had 3 catches for 45 yards. Watching him, he has a very good release and good route running. I think he needs to improve on his catching. He had one easy drop that should have been a catch, where Jordan Love actually did a hell of a job. Jordan Love pretty much did a rollout to the left while running away from a defender and was able to actually throw it on the money to Romeo Doubs in the chest on the run. And unfortunately, Doubs just dropped it. It was an easy catch. He should have caught it. And then the other one that pretty much sticks out is the interception, where Dubs, he did have the catch and he allowed the defender to rip it away from him, which resulted in an interception. So I wouldn't say he had like an amazing game, because there are definitely some places where it showed like, hey, welcome to the NFL, bud. Like, it's a stiffer competition. Like, you're gonna have to hold on to that ball a lot better. Jordan Love has some zip to that ball, but overall, what I saw from Dobbs, if he can just shore up his hands a little bit, which I'm very sure he will, he's going to be a pretty damn good receiver. Like, he already has the route running. He was getting behind defenders, so it was a very nice start to see him actually do it in game, beyond training camp and beyond all of the off-season hype, that he's continuing this. And I hope, and I can't wait to see what he does in the second game. Then with the rest of the receivers, we had Samori Toure with 3 catches for 42 yards on 4 targets, Juwan Winfrey with 3 catches on 3 targets for 27 yards, and BJ Taylor with 2 receptions for 75 yards on 2 targets. Now moving to the defensive side of the ball, as I stated, all the first team starters were not playing in this game except for Quay Walker. The defensive side of the ball, it was kind of a mixed bag. It depends on which part of the defense you're looking at. So if you're looking at the defensive line, we have some depth there. We had a lot of good pressures, especially on the left side of San Francisco's line. We had Jonathan Garvin and Chris Slayton getting constant pressure on the right side and up the middle, resulting in almost a few sacks. Trey Lance was able to get away on a few of those potential sacks, but it was very good to see how much pressure we were able to get on the Trey Lance on that side of the ball. Then on to the second level of the defense, McDuffie was showing up on this game. He was very concise. He made very clear and quick decisions and made tackles. Our interior linebacking crew once was very suspect, and it seems to be becoming a very good strength of ours, and it's got some depth, especially with DeAndre Campbell and Quay Walker at starting. McDuffie, if he continues on this path, good backup behind him. And we also have Chris Barnes, who has been a reliable starter for us in past years. So it's really good to see depth in the first 2 areas of our defense. Now, the one that's really concerning, and we knew kind of going into training camp and in the offseason that this could be a liability, is defensive back depth. After our first 3 corners in Jair, Eric Stokes, and Razul, who's going to step up in case there's an injury, or maybe they're taking a play off? Who's going to step up, or in a dime package? So unfortunately, a lot of the long touchdowns that occurred in this game were on the defensive side, whether it was a broken coverage or just getting beat in coverage. So there was a long touchdown pass on Rico Gafford. Essentially what happened, he was on the left side of the field, and dude ran a double move on him and pretty much broke Rico Gafford's ankle. So that was very disappointing to see, especially since he's a natural corner, or that's his natural position. And to kind of get beat like that, that wasn't good. And then the other long touchdown, essentially the defensive back came up and was actually going to try and press the corner, and he just made a very good move off the line, and he was free up the middle for an easy touchdown. So like I said, depending on which phase of the defense you're looking at, good and bad. Good, front 7. Defense, the run defense was very good. They had 32 rushes for 116 yards. For only a 3.6 yard average. For the most part, they were pretty good. They stayed contained. They stayed to their assignments and stopped the run. There were a couple of inside zone plays where I was getting nervous. It got some flashbacks because it seemed like they were able to run up the middle at will for a couple plays, but they settled down and were able to clamp down on it. But on the passing side, they essentially had their way. 15 for 22, 212 yards, 3 touchdowns, and for a total of a 142.2 quarterback rating. Our back end was horrific. It wasn't a good showing, and it made me nervous. So we should probably be looking elsewhere to get some cornerback depth, or even sign Kevin King to try and get a 4th corner, because as of the first game, and it is only the first game, a little scary. And lastly, on the side where we don't have to improve at all, special teams. Special teams, for the most part, were actually pretty good. Amari Rogers was the first kick returner. He had 2 returns, one for 20 yards and another one for 51 yards. He also had a punt Well, it wasn't a punt return. He caught a fair catch. Made me nervous because he was kind of tracking the ball and running, catching. It scares me, especially with his history, but he was able to secure it, no bobbling. So good to see. Hopefully he's returning to the kick and punt return he was in college instead of the Amari Rogers we saw last year. And then behind Amari on the kick returns, Rico Gafford and Tyler Goodson both had 1 return each. Gafford with a 20-yard return and Goodson with a 19-yard return. The only real con, and it's a glaring con, was our kicker's only field goal attempt. It was an ugly left hook from 32 yards out. Like, it was ugly. But he did convert all 3 of his extra point attempts. So he could have just shanked it, and he's not going to be our kicker in the future. We're just waiting for Mason Crosby while he's getting healthy. But for this kicker, since he's the one that was playing today, good on extra points. Terrible field goal, but it was just one. So looking at the whole game overall, if I were to pick some winners and losers, Amari Rogers comes to mind. He did very well in special teams, especially after last year. He looked terrific, and I wanted him off special teams. He had a good first showing. I hope to see the consistent improvement in the next 3 games and see where he's at, and hopefully return to form back at how he was in college. And then my other winner for the game would be Isaiah McDuffie. I thought he showed up. He looked like a very good linebacker. He had very clear and concise decisions and made tackles, and he was behind the line stuffing the run a couple times. I thought he had a great show in this game. Then on some losers, Royce Newman had an iffy game. He was kind of beaten on the offensive side a little bit on the offensive line. So hopefully it's just a 1 game, but we're going to need him, especially with our offensive line with Bach and Elton Jenkins still recovering from their injuries. And I don't even know what's going on with Bach because it's almost 2 years. And the other loser that I would pick from this game is pretty much the entire secondary. They did not look good. The depth of the secondary was very scary to see on the field. And I feel like any quarterback could have thrown on them. They were out of position. They had some bad technique. They were just getting beat. And on a final note, Romeo Doubs, pretty much the receiver we've all kind of been looking at, especially with how many waves he's been making in the offseason. He was neither a winner or a loser in my book. He made some good plays and he made a couple bad plays. So he's right in the middle. It's his first game. Might have had some nerves. It's your first game, even if it is preseason. We'll see what he does in the next 3 games. He was the #1 receiver in this game as well, so that's encouraging considering he had good route running and was able to beat the corner, especially a veteran corner at that. So, but let me know what you think down in the comments. If you like the video, hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. And as always, go Pack Go.